Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. Welcome to today's episode of How to Fuck Yourself. I'm your host, Louis Rossman, and today we're going to be going over a local PBS affiliate that did indeed fuck themselves. There's a local PBS affiliate in St. Louis that lost about 50 terabytes of stuff. It doesn't seem like they had a local backup. The reason I'm saying it doesn't seem like they had a local backup is because when their cloud provider for their data went defunct, instead of just walk over to their local backup, which is free, they went to court. And going to court requires a lawyer. It takes a lot of time. That is not something that you do if you have a couple of hard drives sitting by where you could just grab all your stuff. So they're claiming that they lost about 50 terabytes of stuff that goes back about 70 years in the community of all this different type of coverage. And they're saying that they don't have access to the data on the hardware of the servers. So what happened here? This PBS affiliate was renting cloud storage from open source storage. But open source storage does not have their own servers, their own racks, their own hard drives. Open source storage was renting space from Iron Mountain, which is a data center. And it looks like OSS went out of business or they went defunct. From what I read here, they were not able to communicate with them, and also they had a delinquency status with the Colorado Secretary of State. So most likely they are going out of business. And it also looks like that OSS did not renew PBS's contract and that they actually give you about 30 days to grab all your stuff. So I'm just going to state what my biases are up front here so that I don't get it all in the comments. I am a bit pro PBS. I enjoy PBS's programming. I saw that they were defunded over the past year, and I thought this was rather lame, especially the reasons that were given for it, which is that they're highly biased. You can watch their Frontline documentaries and you can see that for the entire Frontline documentary, they will literally have somebody like Steve Bannon that is cursing at them and saying this is why everybody hates you. And the interviewer will just be like, tell me more. And what do you think of this? And when they do an interview, they will actually have let's say they have a 2-hour documentary. They'll often release 12 or 14 hours of the unedited footage from every single individual interview they did to make the documentary, which is very rare. So I love PBS and I love their stuff. And there are people in the comments that are saying things like, this is what happens when you don't properly fund public news and public media. This is what you can't expect that they're going to do a good job. I just want you to understand up front, when I say the things that I say, I have a very pro PBS bias. Please keep that in mind. This is from the Ars Technica article. 9PBS most recent contract with OSS ended on March 6th. 9PBS said it couldn't get a response from OSS about renewing the contract in February. The station claims its contract gave it 30 days to retrieve data at the end of the contract. However, 9PBS says it abruptly lost access to the data when the contract expired. First things first here. If you are trying to renew your contract and they are not allowing you to renew your contract for 70 years of your data, the first thing that you fucking do is you run out immediately. You do not pass go, do not collect 200, run to Best Buy, run to Walmart, and grab as many hard drives as you can. Plug them into the computer and start downloading your shit immediately. If you know that you do not have your data anywhere else but one server, one company that is no longer accepting your money or extending your contract, that's a 911 level emergency. You immediately go out, and the first thing that I would do is I would run out and grab as many hard drives as possible and not even worry about RAID setting shit up. I would just be fucking plugging them in and grabbing stuff immediately. Looking at their 990, we can see that there is a chief technology officer that makes $179,000 a year. Now, while this is not, I'm buying my own island to compete with Epstein, I'm going to have a bunch of Bentleys that change colors like MC Hammer outside my house level salary, that is enough money that somebody was there that should have some sort of technical know-how to the point that they understand that if we have 70 years of our data on one server and that company is no longer responding to us, we need to download that shit right fucking now. At the very least, do that. I'll excuse you not understanding that you should have a NAS or a local backup, even though I fucking shouldn't. There's no excuse for that. When people say, well, this is what happens when you don't fund public media appropriately, is $179,000 a year not enough to have a competent tech professional that understands that storing all of your data on one server from one company that is no longer responding to you means you should start downloading it immediately? Is that too much to ask? The second thing here is that there are people saying, well, you can't expect a public station that's not funded properly, especially nowadays with all the cuts that Trump did, to be able to afford an IT staff to do this stuff properly. Now, just to give you a little bit of context, the best year that my company has ever had, I made a gross income, not net income, gross income of about $2 million. Again, I have to pay New York City rent. That was over $13,000 a month. I had to pay 16 employees. The company was at its biggest point, and I was paying better than the industry average for people who work in our industry. I had to buy all the parts for all the things we did and many of the services that we were performing at the time. The part cost could be about half what we were actually making in the repair. So this is not like me pocketing the money, right? But even at that point in time, when I had grossed $2 million, I had at the very least about 80 or 90 terabytes of storage on site for our company for the data that we were dealing with. Let's take a look at how much money this local PBS affiliate was bringing in and what their budget was. 2022, their gross income was about $13.5 million. Expenses, $12.8 million. Their net was $750,000. So the net, that is what they got to keep after paying all the employee salaries, after paying the directors, $700,000. Next year, this year they lost about almost $1 million. Not great. But the next year they made up for it by making over $1.7 million. And next year they sold some things. So they wound up making about $32 million. And on some of these years, their investment income alone, to be clear, this is not people donating to them. This is not them selling shit. This is just the money that we had sitting in the bank, appreciated, or the dividends off of our investments, or the growth in our stock portfolio was almost $500,000. When you scroll down to look at the salaries of the people that were staffing the organization, you will see that we have, again, these are not, people here are not getting crazy rich, to be clear. How do I get rid of this fucking thing? I don't want this here. Okay. When you look at the organization's salaries, the CEO is making $355,000 a year, the marketing person $182,000, the chief technology officer is making $179,000 a year. And I get it, $179,000 in 2024. He's not retiring next year, right? But that's enough money to realize that it is a fucking problem that one company, one cloud provider has all of your data. You have no local backups. How many people here in the audience are tech employees who are unemployed? Raise your hand. If you were given $180,000 a year, would you have the wherewithal to think, okay, if 70 years of a community's history and public news and history is hosted on one server, maybe I should use some of that $1.7 million in net profit that came through this year to spend $2,000 in a NAS? I have over 200 terabytes in my house downstairs. My company now is close to 400 terabytes, and I'm not making $2 or even $1 million a year anymore of my business. As I said, when I moved to Texas, I massively shrunk my company. This is the most incompetence that I've ever seen in my life. It's inexcusable. It's not even like you don't have it's one thing to not have a backup, but how could you have 70 years of shit on one how can you have this level of funding, this level of staffing, and not a single fucking person thinks it's a problem that you don't have a single local copy of your stuff? So I saw a lot of people saying that Iron Mountain is doing the wrong thing here by not giving up the data immediately. And I disagree completely. I'll give you an example here with my company. And this is something that I've had happen before. There was somebody who brought something in. They wanted the data, they wanted it fixed, they wanted data recovery. We do it. We don't hear back from them for a month, which is not the norm, but it does happen. There are people that realize, oh crap, I can't pay the bill. I forgot about it. And I found my data elsewhere, but I just don't want to have that awkward conversation of, hey, I know I gave you guys work to do, but now I'm not going to pay you. I'm used to it. I get it. Like, fine, whatever. Somebody comes in a month or two later and asks for this person's stuff. And they weren't the person that was the person who dropped it off. And we ask, well, okay, you're not this person. Well, what's going on here? I can't just give you it. And they say, well, he died. And then I Google it, and I see that there is an obituary page. And the obituary page, I don't know if any of you are familiar with this, but a lot of the obituary pages that you see for people, even some of my own family members, they look like 1990s GeoCities made websites. And even if it was official looking, I still need more than that. But I looked it up, and this was a website where the only obituary that was on that website was the obituary for this one particular individual. It looked like something that ChatGPT 3.5 put together in one prompt. We don't want to be dicks, but at that point we had to be dicks and say we need something more than this. If you can demonstrate a death certificate and also some sort of ID that demonstrates that you're a direct family member, we can have a conversation. But somebody that I don't know, that doesn't have a last name that is at all related to the person, showing me a page that looks kind of GeoCities presented, like, I can't do that, because what that means is that there's a good chance that somebody could prank one of my customers and then steal their data. We are a data recovery business. I cannot give data back to somebody that is not my customer. It's just not how this works. If Iron Mountain was selling the storage racks to OSS, I can't just have PBS walk in and say, I want that stuff, it's mine. You're not my customer. If you were a customer of my business, how would you feel if I gave your data away to somebody that wasn't you? There has to be a really fucking high bar for that. And by having this adjudicated in the courts, Iron Mountain is ensuring that that high bar is set. If a judge says, Iron Mountain, you need to work with this specific person and have this specific person figure out where PBS's data is, Iron Mountain can then say, listen, we did our due diligence. We're just doing what we're told now by the legal system. Iron Mountain can't simply just give away people's data willy-nilly. And further, the example of what's going on here is actually way worse than what was going on with that one person that walked in and was claiming, I'm the girlfriend of the person who had passed away. See, that device only had that one person's data. But here, that server could have data belonging to 50 different customers. Iron Mountain was providing the infrastructure to open source storage, but they weren't actually configuring all these systems. Now, a sysadmin could obviously go in and probably, fuck with shit and find out where PBS's data is, but there is a chance for error there. How do you know exactly what data belongs to PBS if you don't have access to the person that actually configured that server while they were renting it? That's a serious fucking problem. If Iron Mountain was to just say, okay, here PBS, we're going to give you the server that belonged to open source storage. They're not just giving PBS access to their own data. They may be giving access to a bunch of other people's data that never fucking belonged to them. Imagine if your data was on that server and it got handed over to a PBS affiliate and your pictures and your personal journals were all there because they just handed it over. Like, that can't happen. At Rossman Repair Group, if you bring us something for data recovery, I am not going to give your data away to other people. And if that makes me a dick, so be it. Yeah, there's going to be a really high bar of proof. I understand that it is a sensitive situation, but I would rather somebody think that Louis Rossman and his staff are fucking assholes because they asked for a death certificate before giving me access to my boyfriend's data. I would rather be the asshole that does that than the person that got tricked into giving you somebody else's shit. People are going to make mistakes, right? If I run a business for 18 or 20 years, at some point I am going to make a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes, but we are going to do everything in our power to minimize the likelihood of that happening as often as we can. The issue here has nothing to do with money. I'm not going to say, well, you didn't pay the bill, so you can't get the data. If you're able to produce a death certificate and you can demonstrate to me that you are a relative of this person, here, like, fine. I'm not that evil. But I am going to take as many precautions as necessary to ensure that customer data does not just get given away to somebody else. And if that means that people are going to think that I'm a dick, then that's the cost of privacy. And frankly, that's part of the fucking job that I'm signing up for when I am agreeing to be a custodian of somebody else's property and somebody else's data. I cannot just take you at your word. I cannot just take it as we rented space from them, they rented space from you, let me just see what's in the room. It doesn't work that way. So what happened here seems like the best possible case scenario in this clusterfuck of a situation. A judge barred Iron Mountain, which is the data center, from deleting, modifying, or overwriting any material. So first, do no harm. After that, the district court judge Eric Elif ordered Iron Mountain to hand over the physical devices and ordered 9 PBS to use a third party like a former OSS worker to retrieve the data within 30 days without corrupting other clients' data. Because again, PBS may have a right to their data, but they do not have a right to that server because that server has other customers' data on it. A better example here with that thing that happened with the death certificate. Imagine if somebody came into my company and said, not, I want access to that MacBook or that hard drive because that belonged to my dead ex-boyfriend, whose only proof I have that they passed away is this GeoCities looking website that could have been thrown up by anybody in 5 seconds. Imagine if they wanted access to my NAS, to my server. Because at that point, you're not only getting access to the supposedly deceased person's data, you're also getting access to 40 other people's data, 1,000 people's data, however many people's data is on that machine at that point in time. And that's not fucking acceptable. If a court were to say that that customer or that customer's girlfriend has a right to that data, they can't just get access to my fucking NAS. They would have to have somebody like Chris or Dan or Kevin or myself go through that, specifically ensure that we are only grabbing the data that belongs to that person that the court has said owns the data, and then give them the data that they own, but nobody else's data. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think I'm being a little bit too harsh on this local PBS affiliate, or do you think that this is exactly the amount of harshness that is necessary when the chief technology officer makes $179,000 a year and for several years doesn't see it as a problem that they have one cloud storage provider? No backup, no local copy of the data, no nothing. When you see the amount of fucking money that this station brings in and you look at the cost of a 20 terabyte hard drive. I get it. Like, they're more expensive than they used to be. It makes me sick. It really does. I don't like it. This shit used to cost fucking $200 back in the day. It sucks. But 20 terabytes is $700. Like, you guys are making $200,000 to $400,000 a year on your investment interest alone. Come on, bro. See you in the next video. Bye now.